Well, good Monday evening, XFL fans. We are back here, the guys at XFL Chalk Talk, for another live edition of XFL Chalk Talk. You can find the show on, of course, YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit the notification bell so you get the latest content from the show. We're not going anywhere. The XFL season might be over, but we definitely are, right, fellas?
No way.
Yeah.
You can also find us. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We're at XFL Chalk Talk. We have a lot to get to tonight, believe it or not. It's going to be a fun show. So we're going to, obviously cover the XFL news that's going on. A lot more players have signed since the last time we talked. We're going to go over some of those players. Some guys we're hearing rumors about that could be next in line. I think, over these next few weeks, we're going to really see the XFL players jumping to the NFL. We're going to see that number really ramping up. So we'll talk about some guys that we anticipate heading to the NFL. And Pastel and I's favorite NFL team is fighting for one of them currently right now. So we'll get into that. Then we're going to answer fan questions that you guys submitted through the YouTube channel in our community tab. If you haven't checked out our community tab, by the way, make sure you do that. It's a great way to interact with the show. And also our Discord. Kenny, I know that you are big in the Discord and Kenny's crew. So after the show, we'll put a link in the description so you guys can. It might actually already be there to join the Discord and chat with the show, even when we're not on the air. Just about XFL, and then there's stuff not XFL. So it'll be fun talking. We have a lot of fun questions that we got to get to. But first, I know, Kenny, that you teased this on the Discord, and I think we may have teased it on Twitter as well. But we have a huge announcement to make, and it's been kind of in the making. It's been kind of in the making, guys, for a month now. But with everything that happened, kind of got put on hold. But we
worst timing ever.
Started from the bottom. Now we're here. The next step in our journey, we have officially signed a contract with Blue Wire Sports Podcasting Network. Big time, fellas. We have gone big time. We are sellouts for the money. We are teaming up with Blue Wire Sportscasting. You can visit them at bluewirepods.com. What does this mean for everybody? Guys, I'll let you kind of chime in, but basically what it means is nothing's going to change. The only thing that's going to change is more content coming your way, different forms of content. We're getting more resources as a show. It really is a win-win for everybody. Kenny, I know that you've been kind of messing around with the back end. We just signed our contract a couple weeks ago, but we had our onboarding meeting. We're super excited to join up with Kevin and Tyler, the guys at Blue Wire. They are an up-and-coming podcasting network. They just got some huge cash influx. What was it, a month ago or so?
Investment.
We're talking millions of people.
Investment.
Millions.
Yes.
So we're
$1 million.
We're super excited to join up with Blue Wire Pods. So Kenny, kind of tell people, we've kind of been circulating some ideas as a show behind the scenes on some content that we can kind of give you exclusively on Blue Wire, the podcasting network.
Yeah. So the Blue Wire, I guess partnership, if you will, is going to be really huge because I've sat in a couple of their calls now behind the scenes, and the amount of resources that they're going to be able to provide that we're going to be able to extend to you as the listener and really take our show from here to here is going to be outstanding. I've just been really impressed with everything that they're going to be providing for us. And then we're going to be able to do some really special shows and really, be able to request certain things that we probably wouldn't be able to get on our own in terms of access, content, sound clips, rights and everything, rights with fees and stuff like that they have that we couldn't get on our own. So to be honest, it's really going to benefit the listener the most. And it's really going to allow us to open up our content library to you guys.
Yeah, just to kind of echo what Kenny said, I think ultimately our listeners and our fans win the most because, if you really like our content now, you should just imagine it down the line. I mean, we get access to a lot of tools that, frankly, without partnering with Blue Wire, we just frankly wouldn't have. So you guys are the real winners out of all of this. And just to answer Andrew G's said, Chalk Talk is rich now. Well, spread the word, and that might happen. But
nobody told me that.
Is that? Yeah, I would tell you.
Did Kenny take the money behind our backs from the deal? And
I've been skimming off the top.
Yeah, but FJ365 Echo, E for Echo, military terms right there. Says, what jersey am I wearing right now? This is my old high school jersey right here, Chancellor Chargers. Shout out. We all played football over at Chancellor, so I thought I'd rep my old high school jersey as we go ahead and do this show and kind of reflect.
If I could go back in time, I'd take States.
That's right. I had a Division I scholarship, and then I tweaked my knee.
Tweaked it.
Blew out my knee.
So yeah, nothing's going to change, especially on the YouTube side of things. We will be mixing it up, doing some exclusive audio only type of shows that you can find on Blue Wire. But other than that, I mean, this show is going to be this show. I mean, there's no, we still have complete control creatively. We're just really excited to join up with an up and coming startup like Blue Wire Pods. They've been doing some really amazing things, and you can check them out at bluewirepods.com. I mean, what do they have? Well over 50 podcasts now. And the cool thing about Blue Wire is that they're so unique. I mean, you could find a podcast for your favorite team, league, and then other things that kind of, the financial aspect, the fantasy aspect. I mean, they really cover it all on this network, and they were looking for an XFL channel, and what do you know? They found XFL Chalk Talk, the largest XFL focused show on YouTube. So we're super excited for that. So let's go ahead and get in. Go ahead, Kenny.
Well, and just one more thing. When we say exclusive content on Blue Wire, that's not behind a paywall or anything like that. You can access it just like you would any other XFL pod or one of our podcasts on Stitcher, iTunes, Apple,
Spotify,
Google Play, Spotify. That's all the same. But some of the audio stuff might be different than what we necessarily do on YouTube sometimes. That we say we mean exclusive.
Cool. All right.
I just want to clarify that.
Let's talk about some XFL. So there's been a lot of signings. Last week we talked about the two big ones because last week on Monday it was the first official day that NFL teams could sign XFL players, and we saw your typical names that we expected to come off the board, with PJ Walker being the poster child of the XFL, and then Jordan Ta'amu, the top two quarterbacks in the league with the most upside. No surprise there that they make the jump to the NFL. They will be sorely missed, but hey, that's a great sign for the XFL in terms of legitimizing their league. A couple other players.
Davon Walker's a big one on defense. That was a big one for the Steelers.
Kari Lee.
Dedrick Nichols. But there have been a couple others. Yeah, Kari Lee. So there's been two tight ends now. Donald Parham, who is a steal. I mean, this guy came out of nowhere. Before the Renegades season started, there was debate whether he was going to be the starter or Sean Price. And I think if the season would have continued, you would have saw a trend, kind of like how the Patriots were back in the day with Gronk and the player who not will be named. We'll just call him the murderer. No, don't call him.
That's not.
Yeah, so Sean Price, Donald Parham was kind of going to be that two-headed monster, if you will. So Donald Parham heads to, is it the Chargers, guys? I think he went to the Chargers.
Chargers.
On a multiple-year deal. Signing. Yeah, so there's been a couple guys.
It's 2-year deals, man.
There's been a couple of those guys, Pastel.
I think PJ Walker signed a 2-year deal with Carolina. Like we just said, Parham signed a 2-year deal. And that was kind of one thing taken out of all this is these guys aren't just signing like 1 year, like prove it to me deals. They're signing multi-year contracts at this point, which is, again, is like one step farther into proving that the XFL is legitimate, is these guys are now signing for multi-year contracts, which is awesome news for the XFL. There was a comment earlier before we started saying, like, what's the XFL going to do now that they lost really 14 of their biggest stars to the NFL? All that does is bring in new stars that want to be these next 14 stars in the NFL. So this is a huge win for the XFL and in the NFL and really just football fans in general.
Yeah, the other thing about it, when you talk about the talent thing, there's enough talent out there. I don't think just because these guys aren't in the XFL and they sign with the NFL doesn't mean that there isn't a lot of talent out there. I mean, think there's going to be 2,100 guys selected in the draft, right? 2,100 guys. I mean, you think about that on a scale perspective. I mean, that means there's 2,100 guys who no longer have a job anymore. So, plenty of guys out there.
Yeah, so I think we might as well go ahead and talk about it. We have a question: has Cam Phillips been signed? The answer is, as of the recording of this show, no, he has not. But there are rumors swirling out there, and it's between Pastel's Bengals and my Dolphins.
Yes, sir.
So
yes, sir.
I've heard reports that both teams are interested in him, and that was a couple days ago. I haven't heard anything recently, but Pastel, how do you think he would fit in a Cincinnati Bengals offense with possibly Joe Burrow throwing?
Joe Burrow. I mean, think about this: Joe Burrow, AJ Green, Tyler Boyd, and then you add a guy with the talents of Cam Phillips. Dude, I mean, Cincinnati's offense, they might have been the worst team in the NFL this past year, but boom. It's just like San Francisco this past year. They picked, 2 overall last year? Made it to the Super Bowl. That's Cincinnati next year. Watch and learn.
The Tiger King, man. That's
the Tiger King.
That's what we're calling Joe Burrow. The Tiger
Let's be honest. We can use all the help we can freaking get in Cincinnati. So Cam Phillips would be a welcomed player on that team. And honestly, I think it'd be the same thing for Miami. And do you disagree, Riley?
I love that this time last week, Pastel was panicking, especially like before we went on the show, because rumors were swirling that the Dolphins were going all in for Joe Burrow. And you were, I don't know if you're still worried about Joe Burrow being traded out of the number one, or the Bengals trading out of the number 1 spot and the Dolphins taking Burrow. Can you imagine if Pastel being a Virginia Tech fan, can you imagine if the Dolphins trade up for Joe Burrow? So you lose on Joe Burrow. Someone trades up to 3 and you lose out on Tua, and Cam Phillips signs with the Miami Dolphins.
No, dude, that's what I'm worried about right now. And I don't think that's crazy. Like, people out there are going to be like, the Bengals won't trade it. It's the Cincinnati Bengals franchise. And yes, they're my favorite franchise, but if this Miami Dolphins offer them 3 first-round picks, I think Zach Taylor already said at the beginning of this year, he's like, I'd rather have multiple first-round picks than the number 1 pick. He legitimately said that before the offseason happened. And would you be
that upset if they got 3 first-round picks and ended up with Tua?
Yes. Sorry, I spoke too fast. If they ended up with Tua, I wouldn't be as up.
Picks?
I wouldn't. I would. Yeah, I'll take that. But if they end up with not Tua and not Joe Burrow, no amount of first-round picks, in my opinion, unless it's like this guy eclipsed like 5. You can only win with a franchise quarterback. Prove me otherwise.
So if Cam Phillips goes to the Miami Dolphins, which that is a rumor out there, they would team up with him and Isaiah Ford, former Hokie teammates. So that is one really cool thing, Pastel. If he did go to the Dolphins, at least you get to see Cam Phillips and Isaiah Ford take the field together again. And why would he want to go to the Bengals? I mean, the Bengals are a dumpster fire. They're always going to be a dumpster fire. Even when they make the playoffs, you know they're going to lose the first game. At least the Dolphins seem to be finally heading in the right direction. So, at least, come on, Cam. If you're watching right now, you need to jump on the Dolphins bandwagon here and join a team that actually has somewhat of a future ahead of them and not go down in the dumpster fire in the Cincinnati Bengals.
You know what I just realized as I sit here and look at all 4 of us on screen is 3 of you guys, all your favorite teams are picking in the top 5 of the NFL draft this year. Then the best team is 9th, and the Jags with my team. That's such a terrible, terrible situation for all of us.
Where did we go wrong, man? Like, just picking teams as we grew up. Because it's like, so we got Jacksonville, Cincinnati, Miami, and then Washington/Seattle, depending on what day Glessner wants to pick his favorite team.
I mean, honestly, I think that has a lot to do with why we're so into the XFL. Because our NFL teams have been so bad for so long. Like, I know for me, the Dolphins have been such a joke that the XFL was like finally some new, exciting football that I can get behind and not just go into every year hoping for an 8-8 season. But there's an interesting question out here in the chat. People are asking about coaches, any coaches news. And there's not going to be any news, I would suspect, for a while when it comes to the coaches. We should do a segment, though, on which coaches we think are going to stay and which ones we should go. I mean, the number one headliner is Bob Stoops going to go in for a second year? And he was asked this. I don't know if you guys saw his, I guess, wrap-up end-of-the-season interview, whatever you want to call it, with the press. But he was asked, are you coming back? And the way that he is talking, at least right now, is he fully anticipates coming back next year. He said he's committed to this league. He's committed to the Renegades, and he wants to see this thing through. So I think if Bob Stoops is saying he's going to stay, that bodes well for keeping all of these coaches in some continuity moving forward. I don't think, where would these other coaches go? I mean, in such a shortened season, I don't see, a coach like Pep Hamilton making the jump back to the NFL after just 5 games in the XFL. I think possibly if they had gone a full season, we may have seen some movement in the coaching ranks, but I'm not seeing anyone really making that jump, and I'm not sure the XFL would really get rid of guys for lack of success at this point. I think it's just too early.
And here's the thing. The season starts late after the NFL season is over, that they missed the entire coaching carousel for the NFL. The only guys who left were for college positions. Obviously, we talked about Meacham going to TCU, and then obviously Mike Riley left for a family emergency. But other than that, these guys are coaching during the NFL coaching carousel. So unless they get offered, I'd imagine a coordinator position or higher, which would be a head coaching position.
Yeah,
these guys aren't going to go anywhere unless Oliver Luck tells them that their services are no longer required. But I don't think you can make a decision that you're going to fire somebody after only 5 games. I mean, I know Winston Moss did, but I just don't think you can do that.
I think the only 2 cases you could possibly make would be Kevin Gilbride and June Jones, and I think that would just be them retiring, that they just don't want to do it anymore, because both those guys are kind of older. You kind of saw Kevin Gilbride. I mean, he just kind of.
I mean, they called him Grandpa.
It's just the game. Does he even want to do it anymore? So, after being back into it. So, we'll see. Sometimes those guys are, kind of football lifers and they may stick around. But those are the only 2 I could see kind of not coming back. And that's just purely out of, I just want to retire.
Yeah, I'm super excited to see what Jonathan Hayes does going forward with St. Louis, because I think it was between him and June Jones for Coach of the Year at the midway point, and you can make a strong case for Jonathan Hayes, considering, one, he's never been a head coach. He's never even been a coordinator before this job. He was with the Bengals for basically the entire Marvin Lewis tenure, right, Pastel? He was the tight ends coach, I believe.
Yeah, he was, and he was actually a very good coach. I mean, our tight ends have been known to do very well, like Tyler Eifert and Usama, a couple other guys. I mean, so he's been very well. I think he was comfortable, which is why I think he stays in St. Louis. He was comfortable in Cincinnati for 18 years. I feel like this is a new job for him. I think he's going to be loyal to the St. Louis Battlehawks, and I foresee him staying, honestly.
And you could tell those players loved playing for him. Like, that team just had such a good vibe around it. There were other teams in this league where you could see when there were lows, it was getting kind of low, but it seemed like there was always, and it also helps when you're winning if you're the Battlehawks, but you could tell that team was gelling really well as a team and with their coaching staff.
Yep. I no doubt about it, Riley. I mean, they really stood out amongst really everybody else when you talk about a coach being able to handle the locker room, handle his players, respect for the players respected him back. Here's the interesting, guys. Think about this. So when you look about the NFL coaching carousel, like the NFL fires guys, right? There's Black Monday, all of that. It's hard to find good coaches. And I think Jonathan Hayes, and if Pep can be successful in the XFL, I think those 2 guys could be possible NFL head coaches one day.
Yeah, and so that's just it, though. Like, we're going to be looking at this possibly in November, December, January timeframe, when like the college football season starts to dwindle down, NFL season is over. So they might not be on the move right now, but in about 9 months from now, you might foresee actually some of those moves actually taking place.
Honestly, I see coordinators more like what Doug Meacham did in St. Louis. Yeah. I see more moves happening like that, coaching staffs, not necessarily the head coach / general manager. Because remember, guys, in the XFL, the head coach is also the general manager. They make all the personnel decisions, which is very nice for the resume. But yeah, I would anticipate more so of seeing coordinators move, positional coaches moving, and I'm curious of how, since I'm assuming that pay-wise they're going to be paid through the season, just like the head coaches, they're going to be paid, and the players through the rest of the season moving forward, since they're considered full-time staffs. But just something to keep in mind as well. But yeah, I would anticipate if there's any movement, it's going to be kind of in the lower ranks of the coaches. But yeah, so there's definitely, there's a lot to be there's a lot of questions to be answered moving forward, and the coaches is one of them. If we do see coaches leave, who would they replace? And that would make a fun segment. I know Steve Spurrier would be at the top of a lot of people's lists because he was all in on the AAF, and he was so much fun to watch when they mic'd him up. I'm sure he would be chomping at the bit to get in the XFL. Why do I know that? Because he said it before the XFL season. He said, I'd love to get into the XFL. Why not? And I know he's up there in age, but I could see if there was movement in the head coaching ranks, I see Steve Spurrier being a guy that'd be like, what the hell? I'll give it a shot. So yeah, there's been quite a lot of signings in terms of players making jumps, and I think right now the leader in the clubhouse is the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think that they've signed 5 XFL. It's 5 or 6 XFL guys already, which is like, yeah, that's like a fourth of the entire list of guys that have made the jump.
Yeah, so I'm tracking out of 14 players that are signed right now. The Pittsburgh Steelers have signed 5 of those guys. So a third of the XFL players signed, the Pittsburgh Steelers has signed them.
Yep.
Yeah, so I know, Pastel, your defensive MVP, Savon Walker, he's one of those guys. Where did Kari Lee go? Oh, he went to the Falcons, who just lost out on Hooper, which isn't a bad move. Yep. Not a bad move there. It'll be interesting to see how Parham does in the Chargers, because we talked about possible destinations for Donald Parham, and I don't think any of us mentioned the Chargers. It's going to be interesting because the quarterback situation there is in such flux right now. Is it going to be Tyrod? Are they going to bring in a Cam Newton? Are they going to move up in the draft and try to draft somebody? So I think we'll have a better kind of sense of that after the draft, or at least we see a move made by the Chargers, because right now they're kind of sitting tight with Tyrod. But Donald Parham, I think, is probably the sneakiest player going from the XFL to the NFL. I mean, he was by far the Renegades' #1 receiver. Everyone was talking about Jeff Bidet. One of us was talking about Jazz Ferguson. Not going to mention who. But it turned out to be Donald Parham, who was the best receiver on that team. And man, he really looks a lot like Antonio Gates out there, doesn't he? In terms of the athleticism that he brings, the build. I'm not saying he's going to have Antonio Gates type of numbers, obviously.
Say it, Riley. Hot take. Come on.
Hot take, baby.
Let's do it.
He's going to be one of the greatest tight ends of all time.
Of all time, Donald Parham. Here we go. But we've seen what the Chargers can do with a pass-catching tight end. So I think he's in a good situation there. So I don't know if there's any other guys that stood out to you that were signed. I know Tyree Kinnell, the safety for the Defenders, they had some good safeties on that team. So Tyree Kinnell is heading to the Steelers as well. Is there any guys that really stood out to you when we look at this list of players jumping from the XFL to the NFL so far?
I think DeMarcus Gates. I mean, we saw what he did that last game. I think it was versus, was it the Vipers? Or maybe it was Seattle. And he single-handedly took over that game. And you put him on a team like Minnesota, which Minnesota is like one of those teams. It's kind of like the Chargers. Like, they have so much talent on that team just to make it to the playoffs and not ever get to like either the NFC Championship or the Super Bowl. But DeMarcus Gates, I think, is just a solid fit for Zimmer, who is a defensive-minded coach. I think he's going to maximize Gates' potential on that team. I think he's going to be a really good NFL quality talent for the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth, Brandon. That was kind of my guy as well. I thought Gates and Nichols were the two guys on defense I was most excited about to see get signed.
Can't have enough playmakers.
I like Savon Walker. I think that's a great pickup for Pittsburgh. I know they got 5 of the guys from the XFL, but that was the one that I liked the most. Could have been argued that he would have been Defensive Player of the Year in the XFL. Pressured the quarterbacks, created turnovers, and that's something that Pittsburgh needs. So I think that was also a fantastic signing.
Yeah, a lot of Guardians have been picked up so far. Askew Henry is another good one. We talked about the secondary all season long for the Guardians, and he was one of the main guys in that secondary. I mean, he's one of the guys that Pastel mentioned earlier to get a 2-year deal. So the Giants see something in Askew Henry, which is a great sign. Seeing those 2-year deals is nice. And I think he's making – everyone but P.J. Walker, I think, is making the minimum salary. But to see a 2-year deal, that's a nice sign for the XFL moving forward. So in the chat, let us know, who do you think is going to have the most success of guys signed so far from the XFL to the NFL? Put it in the comments below. I'm interested to see who kind of gets the most votes here for guys that they think are going to succeed. But Kenny, let's go ahead and move to the questions. I know a lot of people have submitted questions. You asked a couple of weeks ago for non-XFL related questions. This is kind of a segment to kind of get to know the show, kind of BS, screw around, sandbag a little bit. And Kenny, you want to go ahead and start us off. What is the first question that we got submitted by the fans?
Yeah, so this came from multiple people. So the first couple questions I'm going to go over are not necessarily, I'm not going to about specific handles or people who answered it, because multiple people asked this question. So the first question we have is, how do you all know each other? How long have you been friends? And what are some funny life experiences with each other? So
that's okay. I guess I'll kind of kick it off. So I've known Brandon since I was about 6 years old. Pastel. I know we call him Pastel on the show, but
everyone's like, "Who's Brandon?" I
know Brandon since we were 6. Our brothers grew up playing sports together, and playing sports, hanging out. They were friends, and just naturally, like we were the same age, and we were hanging out with them. So like him and I became good friends, and all the grown up and playing football and baseball together. Babe Ruth, Little League, all that, all the way up through high school into today. So that's how I kind of know Brandon. And then, Kenny just kind of around the neighborhood because, Kenny knows Brandon. You guys grew up in the same neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
My neighborhood.
Yeah. So I grew up down the street from Pastel, and obviously used to ride the bus to school. And so that's kind of how we got to know each other. We played sports in the neighborhoods, football, baseball, whatever it might be. And then obviously we went to the same schools, kind of hung around the same friends. That's how we kind of got to each other. Then I got to know Gless through Pastel when him and his brother picked me up to go play a backyard football game at Glessner's house. And so that's kind of how I got to know the Glessner family. And then we all kind of started hanging out. And then I got to know Riley later on through baseball in high school. And then obviously all 4 of us played on the same baseball team in high school.
We actually played against Riley a lot as kids, right?
All right,
I was always on the cover.
All right,
that's how I knew Riley.
Guys,
I didn't know.
These are all touching stories. Oh, we met when we were 6. Let's get to the good stuff here. Pastel and I were arch enemies when we first met. Dude. Do you want to tell him, Pastel, or do you want me to? Because I'm probably 2 different sides of the story. I went to a different school than these clowns, and I transferred in halfway through my high school career. Before then, I don't think any of them liked me because I was just better at everything. And so we all played baseball, and one time I was playing Pastel's team. Pastel was a catcher. I don't know why you were catching. But I believe our first real encounter with each other was when I bulldozed you over at home plate.
That is not what happened. Oh, my goodness. All right, so check it out. So I was like 13 years old. Before high school. And, this like fat little kid, real slow, running around third base. And they throw the ball to me. I'm the catcher. I catch it. And I'm like, this dude's really coming to home plate. And he's like, chugging. I thought he was jogging, but I guess he was running for Riley's sake. And he keeps coming. And I thought he was going to slide. He didn't slide. I think he tripped over his foot, hit me as a catcher. Wow. I come back. Either way, he's still out. So I'm not sure about this whole story about Riley running me over as a catcher. That's not true.
The only part of that story that's true is that I was out because you're not allowed to run people over in Parks and Rec baseball. That's the only reason I was out, baby. I truck sticked your ass, and your dad, who's coach, came out furious. I thought he was going to punch me in the face. He was so
He's an intimidating guy, though. He's an intimidating guy.
And we have to move on, but it didn't end there because when I came into high school to Chancellor, we competed for second base. And the funny thing about that was we started off competing against each other for second base, so we would swap second base and center field. By the end of it, we both wanted to play center field. Neither of us wanted second base. And the day that I lost out on that position, I got a routine ground ball, and I threw it basically into the dugout. I was like Chuck Knobloch at second base.
Yeah.
The old yips.
That was the best part. Like, we were fighting so hard to get second base, and yet by the end of it, just because we were so tired of, I don't know what it was, whether it was a position or just competing, and we're trying to focus on the season. We're just like, man, screw this competition. But Riley took it to the next level. And like, there's the first baseman here, and he threw it like 30 feet to the right of him. And it was like the most Chuck Knobloch thing I've ever seen. And then our coach, our head coach, Coach Oliver, he was like, pastel.
Oh, when I threw it, I immediately turned around and started running to center field. And you were like, damn it.
Well, that's it. That's it.
So that's how we met.
I remember growing up again with always playing against Riley on different baseball teams. Like we all played in the same league, but Riley was always on different teams. And Riley always had like this scowl on his face, and like he had like the little kid version of RBF. Like he just always looked pissed off. So I was like, man, this dude's for real. Like just intense all the time. And then, then I got to know Riley and I was like, oh, he's a cool guy. He's a regular guy. Good dude. Yeah, he's a good dude.
By the way,
Riley and I were actually roommates as well. We were roommates right after college.
We welcomed Riley into our wolf pack, so to say.
Into the wolf
pack. For one, there was 3, now there's 4.
All right, we spent way too much time on that, Kenny. What's the next question?
Sorry, way too much.
The next question is how and why did we decide to start a podcast? And if you guys don't mind, I'd like to start this one off.
I would love for you to hear it, Kenny.
So this originated probably about 2 years ago because Gless, myself, Pastel, and their older brothers, we're all in a group chat where we talk a lot of college football. That's kind of what we do. We talk college football in this group chat. So it started out that we wanted to do a college football podcast, and we kicked around some ideas and tried to get some stuff started. Well, Pastel decided, because we were like, you know what, we should bring Riley in on this because he's got media experience, and he'd be a good asset.
The most talented of all of us.
Yeah, he'd be a great asset because he's done this before. So Pastel decides to reach out to Riley and doesn't offer him like a position of like influence or like, day-to-day operations, anything like that. He goes, hey, Riley, we need a Virginia Tech insider. You in? And maybe you could be a CTO.
A chief technical officer for our made-up podcast. None of us have ever done this before.
So all that to say, we then started to obviously, it kind of faded out, and we couldn't really get all on the same page. And then Riley came back to the table.
To me.
Yeah. Yep. And said, hey, what do you guys think about starting an XFL podcast? And then, kind of laid out the reasons on why we thought it would be a good idea. And obviously the 3 of us were really on board with that. So all 4 of us got together one night at Glessner's house and started hammering away. And that was about a year, probably a little under a year ago now. And the finished product is what you see today.
Yeah, Pastel, I don't think my wife will ever forgive you for that initial phone call where you'd offered me the CTO position. So basically, we're going to do a podcast, and we want you to edit all of our crap for us because that's what you do, right? We don't want you to be on the show. We just want you to edit our stuff for us.
You're the behind-the-scenes kind of guy. So you're more of a radio guy, not a video guy.
You're not great for TV.
Yeah, so
but hey, you can be our Virginia Tech
insider. You got the face made for radio.
So obviously I wasn't happy about it because if you follow the show at all, you kind of see, these other guys.
It's just Riley and the guys?
We should really call it Riley and the Chalk Talk crew.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Riley. But no, that's kind of how it started. It started with us wanted to do kind of a college football podcast, and it kind of morphed into a couple of different things. And after conversations with Riley and multiple meetings, we landed on doing the XFL, and it's been awesome. It's been very rewarding since. So pretty cool. But that's essentially how we got started. So and then another question from multiple people is stories of us meeting famous athletes. Gless, why don't you start this one?
Yeah, so I feel like I've been pretty fortunate with some of my employment, meeting some pretty cool people. So I used to work at a home remodeling company in the DC area, and we had 2 spokespeople. One, Ryan Kerrigan, That was one, and he was super cool guy. I actually got to hang out with him on a TV shoot all day. He's our age, and he was just kind of a bro, man. He sat there, and him and I just chatted and just kind of hung out all day, just on shoot. Talked about how much he loved. Big WWE guy.
Nice.
So that's pretty cool. Went to a couple functions with Ryan Zimmerman. I'm a big Nats fan, so that was pretty cool for me. And then the other one, I guess I got two more. Haloti Nada, and that guy towers above me. He is the largest human being I've ever met in my life. It was funny when we were shooting, he had his full uniform on, and it was the middle of July in Annapolis, Maryland, and we were inside a house. It was about 101 degrees outside. He was in his full football uniform. Dude, he was drenched. I've never seen someone sweat more than he was. We had to sit there and dry him off after every 30 seconds. Pretty cool guy. And then Bill Elliott went to a NASCAR race, got some pit passes, and got to talk with Bill Elliott for a little bit. So that was pretty cool.
Gless, I have a question for you. You mentioned shooting it with Ryan Kerrigan. Were you wearing this helmet the entire time you were talking to him?
I wore it for a while.
Clown.
I wore it for longer than I would actually like to admit, dude. So the day before, my boss comes to me. He's like, Brandon, I got something that you're gonna love. I was like, hey, he's like, I need you to drive to Redskins Park. I need you to meet the equipment manager and pick up Ryan Kerrigan's equipment. I'm probably 24 in that picture, so I'm like, heck yeah, man. So I'm speeding to Redskins Park, get in there. And then he gives me this box of Ryan Kerrigan stuff. And dude, I wore his helmet the night before. I was just hanging out at my house, just wear the helmet. But I wore that thing for a while.
Yeah, I can't tell if they're that big or if you're that small. I'm not really sure.
No, I'm that small. They're
that big.
Haloti Nada is that big. Haloti Nada would look that big to any of us. But yeah, no, I'm pretty tiny.
All right, quickly, Pastel. Have you met anyone
famous
other than yourself?
I got the best one. Steve Berline. That's the
All
only.
Kenny, who have you met? Steve Berline.
I see about four people in the whole who are watching who Steve Berline is.
All-time Carolina best quarterback.
Whatever views we have left are gone. Steve Berline, are you kidding me? That's the best you can pull out.
Our numbers are tanking as we speak.
Kenny Pritchard in the chat says Gless looks like he tried on his big brother's helmet.
Dude, I'm telling you, I got so many people that told me that. They were like,
that picture in general,
twin.
That picture in general looks like you and your big brother.
Yeah, that's basically. That's it.
So the only famous people that are worth probably noting that I've met are Alfonso Soriano, who is deceptively big. Yeah, 40 guy for the Nationals. I had a conversation with him. He's really cool. Chris Samuels, the old left tackle for the Redskins, who was 6'8", 350, a massive dude. And then I met Paul Wright. For those of you who don't know Paul Wright, that is the Big Show in the WWE. He is every bit of 7'3", 500 pounds. He's the biggest person I've ever met in my life. He's huge. I didn't know people could physically be that big. And you see him on TV, and you're like, is he really that big? If I stood next to him, would it feel that big? It's unbelievable. He's inhuman. That's how big he was. I can't even describe it. It was cool. He was a really nice guy though, man. Shook my hand, which was 5 of my hands, and then talked with me for about 15 minutes. We were in Fairfax, and they were getting ready for a live show, and I ran into him probably about an hour, 2 hours before the show started, out and about. So it was pretty cool.
So I don't even know if this fits because they're more relationships that I have more than meeting people because that's how I roll. But when I worked,
oh my god,
when I worked at SiriusXM, I got to produce shows for guys like Todd Hollingsworth, who I was a big fan of. Rob Dibble. I know you DC fans may not like that name, but Rob Dibble was cool as. I'm not gonna say the word, but he was awesome. He was so much fun to work with because when Rob Dibble he would be on during the segment, we'd get off and he'd immediately start, if we did an interview, he'd immediately start bashing whoever we were talking to.
That's awesome.
How about Jeff Nelson? I love your stories about Jeff Nelson.
Jeff Nelson. Let's just say he didn't put a lot of effort into the show. He kind of would just join and then do the show. It was weird because like when I was doing it, so you baseball fans would know, if you're baseball fans, you know Todd Hollandsworth, Jeff Nelson. When they worked, I did the morning show for MLB Network Radio. They would switch off. So like Hollandsworth would do some days, then Nelson. The atmosphere was completely different because Hollandsworth was so like, Hollandsworth would be the first person to join. He had like 7 cups of coffee. He was ready to go. Jeff Nelson, every time he got on, I think he was hungover. Like the guy was just like not.
That's phenomenal. That's phenomenal.
Oh, and he would talk about his ex-wife. That was.
Do you remember when you thought he was sleeping? When they were sitting there in the middle of a discussion and he was asleep on the air?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't want to get into it too much because I like Jeff Nelson. But
I wouldn't care.
I don't even know if you guys know this story, but so Johns Hopkins is where I first started after college, and they have a big lacrosse program there. And Bill Belichick is a huge lacrosse fan, and he's like best buddies with Dave Petromala, the head coach at Johns Hopkins. So I was walking out to my car one day, and in the parking lot throwing the football is Dave Petromala and Bill Belichick.
Nice.
Throwing
Get
the
out
football.
of here.
And I like,
dude, I didn't know this story.
I was like, is that Bill Belichick? Holy crap.
No.
And I shook his hand and I met him. I didn't, I kind of didn't even know what to say because 1, I hate Bill Belichick, but 2, I was mesmerized by Bill Belichick because he's freaking Bill Belichick. But yeah, it was just crazy. Like you're walking to your car after work and Bill Belichick's throwing the football in the parking lot. So that was kind of cool.
Speaking of that, so I remember Riley came home after a couple of lacrosse practices and he was like, Gless, you have to watch this guy coach. And I've never seen a guy ride players more than this guy. And what would come out of his mouth? I mean, Riley and I would sit there and just split a gut laughing at some of the things he would say to kids, man. It's freaking hilarious.
He was that coach that would just literally destroy you verbally, but he loved you. Like he would do anything in the world for you. But like when you're on the field and practicing, he would rip into you for the littlest thing. I was scared to death of him. He was like a 6'7" Italian guy. I mean, he was really scary, really intimidating.
You just come up with these creative names, and it's just, how does somebody think of that? Just
none of which are appropriate.
No.
So,
all right,
dude, they were allowed. Well, let's move on.
Yeah, moving on. So our next question comes from SWSCLE on our YouTube community, and he goes, "What is your favorite Kenny and Pastel fight story?"
Finally, we get to the good stuff.
I want to give a little bit of a background because this question was asked because we brought up one of the times that Brandon or Pastel and I kind of got into a scuffle. So I'm assuming that's what he's referring to on one of the audios of our show. So Brandon, actually, you know what? Let's ask Gless or Riley. One of you two start as neutral parties, and then Brandon and I can chime in.
Well, yeah. So Pastel and Kenny, it's really weird. It's like a cycle. It's like every few years they're good for one. Like, and I'm not talking about just like, verbal, like they will go after each other. And luckily Pastel's never actually gotten a hold of Kenny. Because I think I mean, at this point, maybe back in the day, Kenny, but he's an Army Ranger now. Like, or are you a captain, Pastel, in the Army? I mean, yeah, I don't know, Kenny, if it would go too well for you, but
yeah, it wouldn't, Kenny. What's
that's
up?
a good story.
I know.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Okay, my favorite
over there.
We were at Pam and Mike's. So we were at a friend's aunt and uncle's house, staying the night. It was we would always go for the Daytona Summer Race, right? Isn't that the one we would always go watch? So it was night.
So Pepsi 400.
Yeah, we had some adult beverages. Had a good time, but it got late. I don't even remember how it started. But the funniest thing about it was that Glessner had brought some new girlfriend to this party, and let's just say we didn't hit it off great, especially me and her. I don't really, new people don't tend to like me when they meet me. So
just keep going, Pat.
Go ahead.
So she slept half the day. Like we just met her and she goes and takes a nap. She goes and takes a nap. But so that night, what did you guys even start? What even started the fight?
So what did we like? Always, we got kind of chippy with each other, and we know each other's buttons, and so we had already kind of like started chipping away at each other, and then we were downstairs doing something. I can't remember. We were all sitting around talking, and Brandon was trying to read something, and it was dark, and he was struggling to read it, and I said something, and he kind of gave me this look like it was one of those looks like say another word and it's on, or like do you want to go? And then so he started reading again, and I went today, Junior, in front of everybody, and he just stands up very calmly. I stood up very calmly, and we just walked toward each other to headlock.
The best part about this is one, setting the scene around this is like thousands of dollars. Like NASCAR.
I'm talking tens of thousands of die-cast cars on like surrounded by mirrors and glass shelving. I mean, it was like throwing bulls in a china shop.
But the best part about it is like me and Kenny knew what was about to happen. And we just knew it was inevitable. So it was almost like someone said, ding, ding. And Kenny was like, all right, I'm going to throw this little jab in there. We're about to fight. He threw the jab in there, and I was like, all right, crack my neck. I was like, let's go. Meanwhile, Gluster's new girlfriend, not girlfriend, but
petrified.
What do you want to call it?
Petrified.
It's just like, what is going on? Like this is your friends?
Yeah, I don't think it lasted much longer after that, did it, Gless?
No, it did not. No. That one ended shortly after that.
Gless hopped on my back, and I like threw him off me. And so finally Joe broke it up and yelled at us because
Joe was pissed. Yeah, Joe was pissed.
So then literally like after he broke it up, Brandon and I kind of looked at each other and we just kind of like we're good, and then we were cool after that.
I'm pretty sure we slept in the same bed that night, like in the air mattress, whatever it was that we had set up downstairs. But
that's the thing.
It's funny.
Like, every time you guys would fight, an hour later, it'd be like just the cycle starts over again. Like you didn't even fight.
You ever seen? Go ahead, Kenny.
My favorite one is the one in Jacksonville.
Oh,
that's my favorite because that one was probably the most heated I think both of us have ever like gotten into it. So go ahead, Brandon.
The best part about the Jacksonville was Jacksonville versus Cincinnati. Me and Kenny are obviously big NFL fans. He's a Jacksonville fan. I'm a Bengals fan. We quickly decided to make a sua sponte type of like trip down to Jacksonville. We went down to Jacksonville. I think the Bengals won that game. It was a pretty crappy game, but we go back to his buddy Aaron Bird's place, and we've been pushing each other's buttons all night, right? And I knew this was going to happen. But we knew it was going to happen.
Yeah, it wasn't even that bad, though. Like, we were kind of chirping at each other, but it wasn't like it normally was. But the problem was we went out, and then I got back home, and I wasn't feeling well. I was a little under the weather. And so I was laying down on this air mattress to go to sleep because we had to be up early the next morning. I was not feeling well at all. And so I'm laying down, and Brandon comes and lays down right beside me and just starts like messing with me. And I'm sitting there like hey man, like I don't feel well. Leave me alone.
The bear.
It's just poking, man.
He's like, oh, does someone not feel well? And he's pushing me. So finally, I shove him off the air mattress, which then just ignites a brawl. And the only thing I really remember about it was winding up and taking a big haymaker swing at Brandon.
No. Before you did the haymaker thing, you said with your hands down by your waist, you're like, let's finish this. And then you gave me the biggest uppercut and missed by like 2 feet.
I went for the knockout, dude, and I slipped on the carpet and went down. And then him and I are both like rolling around on the ground, and everybody's just watching us because it was Bobby, Seamus, and Aaron who were there, and they're just like, "What a bunch of idiots."
All right, Kenny, how many more do we? Let's try to fit one or two more in.
Yeah,
we gotta wrap this up.
A couple more. So let's see. Here we go. So one, I'm sorry, I lost the guys. Oh, Billy Bob Thornton on YouTube wants to know who are some media that have inspired you. Gless, why don't you go ahead and kick that off?
Yeah, I'll kick it off. Why not? I would say for anybody who's lives in the DC area, definitely the sports junkies. They've been part of my morning for about a decade, and they actually used to do their radio show right outside of my university, right in Fairfax, Virginia. So I started listening to them in college. I really liked them, and then kept going. And they were just four guys just like us, right? Four best friends just growing up, and they just decided to do their own radio show. And now, if they're not number one in the country for morning sports radio, they're certainly in the top 3. And they're part of my morning every morning. And even when I don't catch all their shows, I definitely listen to them at work and after. And just their chemistry is unmatched, right? And it's something I've always wanted is to do radio like that. And it's incredible radio that covers sports and entertainment and all that. And there's some guys who really inspired me for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, it was Kevin Sheehan, and he might not be a huge name to anybody outside the DC market. Really, I was a big Stuart Scott fan, too, from a national standpoint. Stuart Scott was my favorite growing up. But from a local standpoint, Kevin Sheehan is always someone I've gravitated around. He's on the ESPN 980 team here in DC, which is also a local Redskins channel. And he does shows. He does so many shows about so many different sports. He's kind of the jack of all trades, which to me has always been impressive because I like following a lot of different sports. And he can do the show solo. He can do a show. He's done shows with multiple co-hosts. He's done spots on like the Tony Kornheiser show, which is a nationally syndicated show. So he's kind of done everything. And to me, he's always been the consummate professional, but he's always had a good mix of humor, but not too much humor. He knows his stuff when he's talking about sports across all different kinds of sports, which I really think is impressive. And that's always kind of been a guy I've looked up to in the sports media industry.
Yeah, that's a good one, Kenny. Honestly, that's kind of why I like Stuart Scott. I mean, you already mentioned him. He's authentic. Hey, he's as cool as the other side of the pillow, right? I like the way he approached the way people commentate and analyze sports because he was just all very authentic in how he did it. And that's kind of one thing. Like as we continue to do this as a podcaster for XFL, I think this is the best thing we can do is be authentic, be who we are, and just do the way Stuart Scott did it.
So from a national standpoint, my favorite radio show was SVP and Russillo, Scott Van Pelt and Ryan Russillo. Yeah. They're what was it called? What was the segment, Kenny? The takes of the century or week.
It's the stone cold
lock of the week. Yeah, so that was absolutely freaking hilarious. Funniest thing I've listened to on a sports radio show ever, and it might be on YouTube if you go back and look at SVP and Russillo, Stone Cold Locks of the Week. So I'd probably say them for national, and then I'm going to say Grant Paulson, who actually is like the same age as us.
GP.
Grew up right down the road, and I choose Grant because I was one of the producers on his show at MLB Network Radio. Saturday mornings, he did a show called Minors and Majors. This dude literally was on for 2 hours by himself, talking about minor league baseball, taking calls from people about minor league baseball. We take a call. We didn't prep them. We didn't give them a heads up so we could research who the hell this person was. Like they could talk about some, minor leaguer, like AA, single A person in Albuquerque, and he freaking knew who they were. It was the most unbelievable thing I've ever watched. The fact that he was able to hold his own and talk about minor league baseball like that. And now he's a big timer at 106.7. He talks football. He actually did play-by-play for the DC Defenders this year on 106.7. So he's a guy that I respect immensely. Just because one, he's insanely talented, and two, the fact that he puts the work in. He does the research, he puts the work in. So I think that's somewhat of a rare trait in this industry. And he's made the road for himself, coming from good old King George up the road. Not much going on in King George, Virginia. So.
Yeah.
He's a good one, man. I love Grant Paulson. I'm with you, Riley. I think he's one of the best in the country, and I think all of us It's a treat to listen to him every day because he will only be in the DC market only for so long. He's going to be a national guy eventually. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Well, the cool thing is it comes full circle because he called the DC Defenders games this year on the local radio channel. So he's the head radio guy for the DC Defenders. So it comes full circle now back to the XFL, which is pretty cool.
And hopefully he does it next year. I really hope he does it in 2021.
Yeah. Well, as we wrap up, those of you who we didn't get to your questions, whether that came in through YouTube, text, Discord, whatever, I will go ahead and make sure we answer that offline via responding to your questions. So it will be answered, but we're just not going to be able to get to all of them due to time. I mean, it would be a 3-hour show if we answered all of them, but we do appreciate the questions and we will get them answered. So to kind of wrap up the night, I think we all know what question this is. And this came from a good friend of mine. Her name's Quinn Nguyen. And she texted, she goes, "What are some of y'all's most embarrassing moments?"
Oh, God. I was hoping we were going to skip this one.
No, this is the grand finale, man. We got to do this one. So, Riley, why don't you go ahead and look? I guess I don't know. How do you want to start this? Should we talk about it ourselves or should we give different versions, like different points of views from this? So actually, Gless, I want Gless, and then we'll chime in.
Do you want me to start? I'll kind of lay the groundwork for what my most embarrassing moment is.
Do you remember it?
I also do, I think that's part of the embarrassing moment. I also do want to apologize to my parents who are probably listening right now. Anybody else who knows me that thinks very highly of it, probably a bad idea. But we're just gonna go with it. So we were in Daytona Beach. So all of us got we got a beach house, block off the beach for a week. Went there during summer. We were on college. It was our summer break. It was an awesome house. We had a pool, rooms for everyone. It was great. And we all went there with the grand finale kind of being at the week, the Daytona summer race. So Wednesday, we get this bright idea to say, hey, why don't we do like a beach drinking festival? Right? Like, there we go. That's a good picture of that. That was during the week.
I think Kenny, that's mighty close, man. Those shorts are mighty short, my man.
Awesome.
Ain't no Joe Diffie down there. And anyway, so we had an idea to have something called Beach Fest, which was essentially an all day festival and games around adult beverages. So we started probably at, 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Riley, I believe you went out and got said beverages in the form of a keg because that's what we needed for all the competitions. And we had all these different games. We were paired up in teams. So as you can imagine, by 8 or 9 o'clock of just playing drinking games all day,
quick, Les,
it gets pretty exhausting.
Les, I have to chime in before we get to your part of the night. Even better than your part is the best part of the day. One of our friends that was, Santina, she sang the national anthem out in the driveway before we started.
It's my favorite video ever.
A dude walking his dog down the street literally stopped in the middle of it, took his hat off, and put it over his heart, and stood there for the national anthem.
America.
I wish we had that video, man. It was the funniest thing I've ever seen when we rewatched that video. And so then the night kind of comes to an end as everybody's just exhausted from drinking all day and, being in the sun. And so Pastel, myself, and another buddy Bobby, we're like, we're going to go hang out on the beach. So I take one of these pitchers and I go over the keg and I just fill it up again. I'm like, I'm just going to kind of hang out at the beach the rest of the night. So I walk out and Brandon, and we're all just out there just kind of hanging out. And shocker, Brandon gets in a fight with Bobby, just like he does.
There's a theme developing here.
So they start wrestling around, and I'm like, what? Can y'all just get the F out of here? And like, I'm just trying to relax, right? So I'm in total zen, enjoying the waves coming in. I'm just drinking out of my pitcher. Have no idea how hammered I am, no clue. And then I see this light in the distance, right? I see this light, and I'm like, I have no idea. I have no idea what it is. I don't even know what time it is. And then it comes closer,
or where
closer,
he is.
or where I am, no idea. And then I see the lights go on, and then I chuck the pitcher of beer as far as I can, and I try to get my chair up. I end up falling over my chair, and then the lights come up. He pulls up right next to me, and then the cop comes up to me, and he's like, "Hey man, like, what are you doing out here?" And I don't even remember what I said, but all I remember, he said, "Look, dude, it's 1 a.m. My wife has food for me. I'm really not trying to bust you right now." And so he's like, if you be willing to show me your ID and who you actually are, because I actually think I tried to lie my way out of it. And he instantly knew it because I was probably slurred over my words. And I was like, all right, yeah, I live right over there, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, all right, let me drive you home. So driving home, and then he's like, all right, I'm going to walk you in. And I'm like, okay, like I'm just kind of in my own world. And then I walk in, he walks me in, make sure that it was in my, where I was staying. And then he kind of left me. But that's where I will leave the story to Riley about what happened next.
Well, on the way home, though, didn't he stop Kenny and your older brother?
No. Actually, I narked Kenny and my brother out because we drove past them on their way home. And I was like, oh, there's my brother and my friend. And just...
And I'll tell that portion after Riley tells his.
So I'm passed out sleeping with my future wife, and yeah, at this point it's like 2 a.m, and I literally someone's banging on the end of the bed, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? And I open my eyes, and it's Glessner swaying, kind of standing like this, and a freaking police officer at the end of my bed, and the police officer's like, do you know this man? And I was like,
nope.
No. God, I wish I had said that. To see him tackle you after that.
I would have gone to jail that evening had you lied about that.
I said, yeah, I know him. He's like, all right. He was walking in circles on the beach, falling over, and I just wanted to make sure that he was at the right house. You all have a great night. And I was just like, am I freaking dreaming right now? Because what cop would actually walk you in? Seriously, what if it was the wrong house, Glessner? Which happens all the time with drunk people. What if it was the wrong house?
Can I be honest with you? I don't know. Man, I don't even know how I told him the right house. I was in no
vacation
state to be
house.
giving directions to anything. Yeah.
That's the most clutch memory of all time right there. That's the number one seed of best recollection. But so he drops Gless off, and then Josh and I are walking back. We decided to go downtown afterwards, and we're coming back. We're walking back, and we're on the sidewalk, and this cop comes by us, and we see him, and he pulls into where the neighborhood is, but we're still probably half a mile to a mile out still. But we saw this cop pass us, and then the same cop, as we're getting closer to the house, comes flying out of the neighborhood and literally pulls right up on us, blocks us in a street. So I look at Josh and I was like, dude, we're on the sidewalk. We should be good. We shouldn't be in trouble. And this guy gets out and he goes, do you guys know Brandon? And we both looked at each other and we were like, no way. That's got to be a complete coincidence. And so we kind of just we were about to say no. And he's like,
and there's two Brandons. There's a Brandon and a Brandon staying in the same house.
And so then he goes, a Brandon Glessner? And then Josh just hangs his head in utter disappointment and goes, what did he do? And he goes, we found, and he says the same thing. He goes, I found him walking circles on the beach. He goes, I didn't arrest him, but I brought him home. I just wanted to make sure he was going to be okay. He was like, you guys heading back now? And I was like, yeah, we're walking back there now. We'll make sure he's taken care of.
He probably just rolled up. He probably just rolled up on you, wanted to screw with you.
Oh yeah, for sure. He was because we at the time we didn't know Gless was I know those guys.
I narked you guys out in the back of a cop car. Yeah, that cop was a G though, man. That cop was a G for driving me home because he could have taken me in.
That's awesome.
Oh my god,
that was a G. What a G.
So, Riley, what is yours?
Fine, we'll talk real quick. We'll talk about my road to redemption. So, in high school, I was the pinnacle of an elite athlete. And then I go to college, and that changed quickly. Like first semester of college, that changed.
I've never seen a guy.
My wife now, I came back to visit for like Thanksgiving break. She said she couldn't recognize me because I had gained so much weight from eating, constantly at midnight, 2 a.m. I joined a fraternity, so you know how that goes.
Stop making excuses. You got fat, man.
Well, yeah, that's what happens. That's what happens when you eat at midnight and then join a fraternity. So I was barely even recognizable to my friends. So about midway through my college career, I decided to change the course of my life, to change the path, to really get my act together. And we came up with, and I came to you, Pastel. I always come to you. And we came up with this plan called Riley's Road to Redemption. And it was to get me back into shape, at least respectable shape, before our trip to Daytona, actually. This is all the same summer. So
that's right. It was all
the first morning, I get woken up at like 5:30 in the morning. We take the before picture, this could be great. Kenny and Glessner are actually there filming it. Like we were gonna make this like a documentary, Riley's Road to Redemption.
So awesome.
I will say, we went to the basement and we did some workout for like 15 minutes, which I think was a warm up, but I was spent. By the end of it, I was like, I can't even move. And then Pastel was like, all right, let's go run. And I was like, I really don't know if I can do this. So we go outside. Kenny and Glessner are in the car. Like, I think one of you is driving, the other was filming. So we start running up the road, Pastel and I, kind of like the scene in Rocky, when they're on the beach. I'm imagining it was just like that. So we're running up the road. We literally turn the first corner. I go into my neighbor's yard and just puke all over their yard, like Team America style. Just let it loose.
It was so awesome.
We maybe made it a quarter of a mile. Maybe.
I'm filming it from the car, the passenger seat of the car, and there's Rocky music blasting, like, yeah, come on, Riley. And all of a sudden, he just stops, takes a hard right into the yard, and just blows chunks everywhere.
And the funny part,
go ahead, Pastel.
The funny part about this is, like, it worked. Like, Riley didn't quit after that day. Like, he did it for about a month, maybe 2 months, Riley. And you got into one of the better shapes of your life, and then you went to Daytona and found the love of your life. And she fell in love with you.
We all worked out for a couple months, man, because I know at that point we were running like 2 to 3 miles a night. Like we were all in really good shape.
Want to get in shape for the beach, bruh.
Yeah, we all had pretty decent spots.
But man, Riley, I remember like I was trying to motivate you that first workout, and I was like inside, like internally, I was like, dude, this is gonna be a disaster. This is ever. And that was before you went for the run. I was like, you did like 5 push-ups and you hit your knees, and I was like, oh my god, like here we go.
Oh, how the mediocre have fallen.
You went for a run, and I mean, it could have been more than 200 meters. And I was like, all right, he's doing a decent pace.
You could still see my house. You could still see my house when I threw up.
I'm thinking like we're just warming up. Little did I know Riley was.
We had just turned the corner. Riley, we had just turned the corner. I remember that.
But the young bucks,
it was like Team America style.
The young bucks that we didn't even think about. So we just kept on going. I mean, I think I ran maybe on and off another mile. But can you imagine the family that came out later that day and saw puke all over their yard? What their reaction must have been.
Hot, dude. They had to have been hot. That's all I can say.
But like Pastel said, it worked out. It worked out fine in the end because I lost weight and I found my wife. So there's always hope. I'd like to think I found redemption.
Pastel, go ahead.
Probably a good time for a plug right here. If you want to get to know me, lose some weight, and possibly find the love of your life, just hit me up on Instagram, YouTube, or my Gmail account, and I can give you a new road to redemption.
So Brandon, I think we'll save yours for last. I'll give my most embarrassing, and then we'll save yours for last. So
go ahead.
I think mine's the only one that really doesn't involve anybody else in here. So, and when we were talking earlier, I'd kind of forgotten about this, and then it just all came flooding back to me now. And I'm glad my background is red because my face still gets red thinking about this. So you guys remember like going to college, your first couple of days in college, you're getting to know people, you're trying to make friends, all this stuff. You really don't know a lot of people, like a ton. You might know a couple kids from high school, but other than that, Everybody's brand new to you. So when I went to Wise, imagine like there's two parts of the campus. There's one in like a bowl, and then there's one on like the top of a very, very steep hill. Well, this was like our second day of classes, and you used to walk up these steps to get to class. And it's like, I mean, I'm talking like literally it's like 50, 60 stairs. Like it's huge. It's like going from the very bottom of a football stadium to the very top to get to the classrooms and stuff at the top of this campus. Well, it had been raining that day, and I got to the very top and I can't remember if I was looking for Tommy, who was my roommate at the time. We all know Tommy. Or if I was looking back for somebody else in my dorm room. It might have been one of my suite mates. I couldn't remember who it was. But I turned the corner as I got to the top and was on the grass. And I was, because he didn't know exactly where to go. So I was waving to him at the top of this hill.
Forrest Gump style.
Dude, yeah. I slipped and slid all the way down this hill in the mud on my back like a slip and slide. My backpack ripped off and it fell and it opened up. So all my stuff.
I wish I would have seen this. Oh,
half the campus saw it because everybody was going to their 8 a.m. class. It was like 7:45, 7:50. So I'm laying at the bottom of the hill and I just lay there and my backpack like slides beside me and it's just sitting there and I'm looking like all my I
just all sad and torn apart kind of catches up to him at the end.
I couldn't even go get all my stuff because it was in the middle. It was sitting in the middle of this hill, and I couldn't walk up the hill because it was so slippery. Like it was so wet. And dude, that was one of the most. I literally got up, just picked up my backpack, walked back to my room, changed, and played video games the rest of the day. I didn't even go to class. I was like, I'm not doing that home.
You probably called me, man, at that point because my dad was pretty upset with our phone bill. Talking to each other.
The days you and I racked up like a $500 phone bill.
Didn't the roof blow off the cafeteria at Wise while you were there? From a storm?
Dude, I'll never forget that. That was the day of the Daytona 500, Gless, when Newman won it. I think it was 2008.
I remember that. Yep.
We were sitting there eating breakfast, and all of a sudden, you hear this like loud popping noise, and I look up, and the entire roof blows off the cafeteria. Like we're sitting there eating breakfast, Tommy and I was like, I guess that's the end of breakfast. Dude, we didn't have a cafeteria for like 2 months.
That's awesome.
I wish I would have seen that, dude. Oh, that's hilarious.
Was just embarrassing, dude. I literally, it was like, you ever seen luging, like in the Olympics, where they lay on their back and they go down the ice? That's what it was like.
That's phenomenal.
That was embarrassing.
I don't know if I ever heard that story.
I've never heard that either.
I've never heard it. That's the first time I have.
I never really thought about it because obviously, that was really before text messaging. And
something you'd obviously want to keep to yourself. Yeah, I understand.
And it's just something you don't think. Like we obviously didn't communicate like that because you couldn't text and really there's no social media to keep up with it. So, but that was
loser.
If this had happened in today's world, that would have been all over Instagram and Twitter and
I would have been viral. Yeah. So Brandon, wrap us up here. What's yours?
All right, so I'll make this quick because it's not that big of a story at all. But so there's a hill in our neighborhood that's like pretty fun to go sledding down. So we always go sled down the hill, and occasionally me and my friends like Kenny, Glessner, Riley, and I think Ken Manahan was in that group as well. We'd go to the local Fast Mart is what it was called, and we get a couple 40s of Hurricane. And being at the age of like 17, it hits a little harder than it would right now. But it was cheap. It was 40 cents. We could afford 2 of them at least. And the sledding stopped, and we started walking home. I remember I grabbed Kenny around the shoulder, and I was like, "What's up, man? You my best bud." And he's like, "Yeah, man. So I need you to take this 40 from me because I can't finish it, and I'm gonna be a little punk and go home to sleep." And I was like, "Okay, cool." So now I got 2 40s in my hand because my buddy can't finish it. And I go to my bedroom. I sneak in through my window that I always sneak out of. Mom, Dad, if you're watching this, sorry. And I go to bed. And I remember watching on my TV. I was like, all right, so I'm going to put this 140 right here. I'm going to have a few more sips before I go to bed. And then I'm going to hide this underneath my bed. Well, I passed out with the 40 in my arm and the TV still on. And my dad, he walks in the next morning and he's like, Brandon, what are you doing? And I immediately saw the TV on. I was like, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Like I left the TV on. I was like, I'm sorry, Dad. I didn't leave the TV on. I'll turn it off. I'm thinking I'm wasting electricity, cable bill. And he's like, Brandon. And I think I had like just my underwear on and a 40 in my arm. And he was like, Brandon. And I'm like, oh, you're talking about that. And he was like, Brandon, like I gotta tell your mother, which is a very scary thing to do if like my mom finds out that I'm
not a good situation.
Not a good situation.
So I'm gonna kind of wrap this up pretty fast, quickly. So I was like, I'm sorry, Dad, blah, blah, blah. It's like the first time he actually caught me drinking. Maybe a few other times, but kind of embarrassing. And he's like, and Kenny pulls up to my house at the worst time possible and calls me. He's like, hey, Brandon, I'm outside. Like, you want to come outside and hang out and do whatever we do as kids? And and I was like, Dad, I gotta hang out with Kenny. He was like, was Kenny part of it? And I forgot what I said, but
yeah,
you narc him?
You ratted him out, man?
By the way,
I don't know.
Wait, the second time that happened, and the second time.
If you would have drank your beer, this never would have happened. So my dad's like, I want you to go outside. I want you to pour your beer out in front of him. So I'm pouring my beer out in front of Kenny, and Kenny looks at me. He's like, Brandon, what are you doing? My dad's at the front door, like arms crossed, like just sitting there. And Kenny's like, what are you doing, Brandon? I'm like, shut up, Kenny. Like, just I gotta go. And So later that day, my dad pulls me aside, and my mom, she was very upset. I'm still sorry to this day, like 15 years later that I did that.
Because you were such a perfect angel.
Yeah, he looked at me. He got mad at me. The funniest part about this whole story, he looked at me. He's like, Brandon, like that's something only poor people drink. And I was like, what? Like after all of that, you're gonna get mad at me because I bought 40-cent.
Oh, if they were Heinekens, it would have been
Hurricane. Put it right. If it was a Heineken, he would have been proud of me.
Ice.
He was upset in my liquor choice or beer choice out of all things in that defining moment in my life.
Did it have to be a Miller High Life? It couldn't have been a Miller Light at least.
I thought I raised so much better of a son.
You have standards. But that's and that's a good. Someone brought up that you narked me out because you narked me out when we almost burnt down the forest too.
Almost burned down the woods.
I don't know why you always continuously stood up for him, Kenny. Because Pastel was the first one that would look out for himself. Like when his dog crapped all over my basement floor, and I look up and he's running out the door, so he doesn't have to clean it up and taking off down the road in his pickup truck.
Yeah, I remember I was home scot-free, and I was home clear and free, and Brennan's like, hey, not a big deal, but the fire marshal just wants to talk to you. And the only way that fire marshal knew I was there is Brandon told on me.
Because Brandon knocked him out.
All right. So there's two sides to the story. Yeah, Brandon knocked you out. There's also my friends leaving me, like with a 40, or leaving me at a fire, like just leaving me with nothing to do as like a 12-year-old in a tree burning in the middle of the forest on the driest day of the summer. And Kenny's like, oh, yeah, I got to go walk my fish. And I'm like, what?
I got to go walk my fish.
No, well, yeah, you know what? And that's, you know what? And the fact that I even took up for you and guarded your mail for you and made sure all that stuff just.
I love that story.
No, we got to wrap this up. Let's not get into
before you guys get in another fight, before the cycle comes back around. Thank God we're all remote. We're not together. This could have escalated.
Or Kenny would be dead right now. What's up?
800 miles away.
Yeah, someone said that you two should go at it. I should commentate. And I don't know what he said about Gless.
I got to sell tickets, apparently. Yeah, I got to sell
tickets. Great promoter.
Great, I guess.
Well, yeah, that's it. That's all the questions we got. Like I said, everybody whose questions we didn't answer, we will definitely be getting back to you here shortly on whatever avenue you asked those questions. So we appreciate all the questions, and it was fun. I hope you guys got a little insight on us and got to learn a little bit about the Chalk Talk crew. Yeah, we're going to be doing more traditional segments. We're going to record some for later this week. So be on the lookout for that on our social media accounts. And on the YouTube page at XFL Chalk Talk. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you get all the latest content.
Next Monday, we'll go back to a traditional show. Leave in the comment section topics that you want to see us cover as we move forward into the offseason of the XFL. Yep. We had a brainstorming meeting the other night. We have a good slate of topics, I think, for you guys that we're going to cover surrounding the XFL. We're going to start this week with 10 players that we think could rehab their careers in the XFL. So be on the lookout for that. That should be a good one. But leave, if you want us to discuss a topic, leave it in the comment section below, and we'd be happy to go over it. We have nothing but time moving forward with the coronavirus pandemic going on. We hope everybody's staying safe and staying well during this time. I know it's kind of a weird time in society, but we're going to forge on and keep going. New live shows every Monday at 9, and then we're going to be pre-recording and releasing segments throughout the week as well. So stay with us here at XFL Chalk Talk. Thank you so much for putting up with our shenanigans tonight. For Pastel, Glessner, Kenny, I'm Riley. We'll see you all next week. Have a good week, everybody.